Let's talk about progress. I mean, how does humanity actually make progress? Not just inching forward, but those giant leaps in science, in technology, even in how we live together. Well, today, we're going to dive into a really powerful idea that might just be the secret engine behind all of it. So, let's start with that big fundamental question. Where does progress come from? Is it about collecting more and more data? Is it about finding the perfect leaders to guide us? Or is it something else entirely? The answer I think you'll find might turn your whole idea of knowledge completely upside down. Okay, so let's get into it. The idea is called critical rationalism, and it was first laid out by the philosopher Karl Popper. He came up with a pretty radical new theory for how we know anything at all. At its heart, it's a really simple two-step process. See, we don't just wait around for the world to show us its secrets. Nope. Instead, we first make a creative guess, a conjecture, about how something works. And then, only then, do we use evidence and logic to criticize that guess, to find its flaws. It's this constant cycle of guess and error correction. Now, the physicist David Deutsch came along and added a really crucial piece to this. He pointed out that we're not just making random guesses, we're trying to come up with good explanations. And that little tweak, that one word, makes the whole idea so much more powerful. So what makes an explanation good? Well, it's that it's hard to vary. What that means is it's super specific. You can't just change the details on the fly without breaking the whole thing. You know, think of a conspiracy theory. You can always invent some new detail to explain away any contradiction. That's easy to vary. A good scientific theory, on the other hand, is rigid. It makes specific predictions, and if those predictions are wrong, the whole theory could crumble. That's a good explanation.
All right, let's see how this builds. Because this isn't just a minor adjustment to how we think. It actually flips some of our most deeply held beliefs about where knowledge even comes from right on their head.
So most of us are taught something called empiricism, the idea that knowledge starts with observation. You gather data, you see a pattern, and then you form a theory. Critical rationalism says, nope, wrong order. It says creativity comes first. The human mind just guesses an explanation, seemingly out of nowhere. And only then do we go looking for data to test it and criticize it. And that leads to another huge shift, away from what's called justificationism and towards fallibility. The old goal, justificationism, was all about proving our ideas were true, certain, rock solid. But critical rationalism embraces fallibility, this very sober, realistic understanding that all of our ideas are flawed. Certainty just isn't possible. So the goal isn't to prove ourselves right, but to find the errors so we can come up with better, less wrong ideas. So here's the crucial point. If all our ideas have errors, but we have a method for finding and fixing those errors, something really remarkable emerges. It's called optimism. And this isn't about having a cheerful attitude. It's the fundamental principle that all problems are solvable. Why? Because problems are just errors in our knowledge, and all errors are, in principle, correctable. Now, this isn't just some abstract philosophy. This way of thinking gives us a practical blueprint for how to structure our world, from the highest levels of government all the way down to how we raise our kids. For literally millennia, political philosophy has been totally stuck on this one question. It assumes there is a right ruler, a perfect leader, and our only job is to figure out who that is and put them in charge. But what if that's just the wrong question to be asking?
Critical rationalism, because it accepts that all leaders are fallible and they're going to make mistakes, asks a much, much better question. The focus shifts from trying to find perfection to building systems for error correction. A good political system like democracy isn't really about picking winners. It's about having a nonviolent way to get rid of bad leaders and bad policies once we realize they're not working.
And you see the exact same logic in education. The old model is what you might call the bucket theory, the idea that a child's mind is just an empty bucket and our job is to pour facts into it. But this philosophy shows us that kids learn exactly like scientists do, by making their own guesses and correcting them. When we coerce them and force them to just accept dogma, we're actually damaging their natural built-in ability to learn and solve problems. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit, because this framework is a really powerful engine for understanding and driving progress in technology, economics, and even science itself. Take a look at artificial intelligence. Most of the research right now is stuck in that old empiricist mindset. Just feed massive amounts of data into a machine and ask it to find patterns. But honestly, that's a road to nowhere. True artificial general intelligence, or AGI, won't come from pattern detection. It'll happen when we create a system that's capable of genuine creative conjecture, of guessing brand new explanations that go way beyond its data.
This also completely transforms how we think about economics. We tend to think of wealth as stuff, like resources or money. But what is it that turns a useless pile of sand into a silicon chip? It's knowledge. The true source of all wealth is the knowledge of how to transform matter and energy to serve our purposes.
So let's just pull all this together and look at the shift in action across a few different fields. In science, we move from just wanting theories that predict things, that's called instrumentalism, to demanding theories that actually explain reality. In AGI, the focus has to shift from just detecting patterns to the much harder problem of generating truly creative new ideas. And in economics, we've got to move beyond these deterministic mathematical models to really understanding the economy as this complex system of distributed human knowledge.
So what does this all add up to? Well, it's more than just a neat philosophy. It's a mission. It's a call to action to build a better future by embracing the true nature of how knowledge actually works.
The mission is clear. We need to apply this way of thinking to our biggest problems, to rule out all those dead-end ideas that just trap us. It means we have to accept our own fallibility and build institutions that can survive our mistakes. The ultimate goal here is nothing less than fostering a civilization that can solve its problems and achieve indefinite progress, to, in a sense, reignite the spirit of the Enlightenment for our own time.
And the potential this unlocks is, well, it's quite literally infinite. If knowledge is what solves problems and the growth of knowledge has no inherent limits, then the amount of progress we can make is limitless.
And that leaves us with a final, really powerful thought. If optimism is a physical fact, if all progress comes from correcting our errors, and if every single problem we face is simply an error in our current understanding, then what problem can't we solve? What are we waiting for?